Welcome to Season 2, Episode 14, the last Roundup. Applejack is getting the bad friend point, which is weird because it's an Applejack-focused episode, but she's also the one learning the lesson, so I guess that explains why. Nothing really else to talk about yet. Let's get into it. Opening into an Applejack episode, but she doesn't have her hat on. That was really jarring. We can see she's practicing for a rodeo, which I believe I've mentioned before, but this is probably the first direct showing of it. She may have brought it up in previous episodes as well. There are mud pits around, so maybe she doesn't want to get her hat dirty, but she didn't care about that so much during the Sisters Hoof social, so I'm not entirely sure the reasoning other than ease of animation, I suppose. Oh dear, the back hoof barely clips the hurdle. Gonna have to dock her 300 points for that one. I don't know how rodeos work. Oh, did she not wear her hat so we get a cute shot of Apple Bloom wearing it instead? Adorable. Though Applejack looking to Apple Bloom with a face that screams confidence and how's them apples is definitely speaking to how she wants her sister to see her as the good old reliable sister. Apple Bloom is eating up Applejack's performance, which is adorable as well. These two have some of the fewest conflicts of personalities in the series. They seem to have one of the more stable relationships, which is extra wholesome to see. Apple Bloom also name drops the event as the Equestria Rodeo Competition, so it's not just a rodeo, but a major one. Obviously, there are episodes where these two clash. There's a couple of them in later seasons, but they're relatively stable. Apple Bloom then reveals that Applejack is the current 10-time champion of Ponyville, revealing that Applejack is undefeated specifically in Ponyville, which I imagine doesn't have much competition. She's like the only real rodeo pony we've seen. She at least outperforms the other apples and maybe some other folks we don't know about. Still impressive, but now she's entering the big stage. She may have done an out-of-towner before, but we don't know yet. We may have been told that, but I don't think we were. I don't remember it. They do use blue ribbons for the winners of the rodeo, as Apple Bloom continues to just praise Applejack's achievements. Mostly for the audience. But it is cute to see her being so proud and happy for her sister. Hell yeah, it's the Derpy speaking episode! I'm also definitely going to use the version that's uncensored, where they actually call her Derpy instead of Ditzy, as well as her original voice, because it's all strictly better. Anywho, Derpy has been accidentally destroying various things with her clumsiness, so Rainbow is telling her to be more careful. Alright, time to ruin my reputation by throwing my hat into the controversy ring. So, the main controversy with poor Derpy, as far as I'm personally aware, is that people are comparing her to those who are mentally deficient in some way, when Derpy, by definition, is silly, foolish, or clumsy. Some malicious individuals can use it to specifically target others' intelligence, but that is not its general use case. And parents complaining about it being used here were likely overzealous, like always. She's just a clumsy gal, and we love her for it. Arguably, Ditzy is worse, considering it's defined as more scatterbrained and eccentric, but it's also directly targeted at women usually, which makes it just strictly worse, while Derpy is more of like a neutral anyone can be at type of turn. Ditzy can also be taken to mean non-serious, but Derpy does try to take a lot of things seriously and just accidents her way past it and doesn't always get things going greatly. Honestly, I'd say her predominant trait, aside from clumsy, is more unbothered or relaxed. She seems very go-with-the-flow style. There was no malice behind this character or her characterization. This is probably all I'm going to go for with this matter for the entire series, but we love Derpy and we don't care for any overzealous backlash over harmless things. Rainbow cannot fly while carrying presumably less than 400 pounds of structure, despite flying with at least 500 pounds beforehand, on top of her being able to carry that giant statue, though that wasn't while flying, but she did pull the balloon plus all of her friends while flying, which is probably around the same weight as all of this. I guess the momentum of it falling was too strong, sure. Derpy immediately checks on Rainbow when things go south and continues to try to help. Just a sweet little bean. Anyway, as for the background counting, technically she's in the foreground as she's directly interacting with the story, but I think I said I was counting their appearances and uses in the show, not just their background appearances, so we'll count this as Derpy 48, sure. Derpy smashing the porch? What is this section called, honestly? Whatever. When she's smashing it, she's actually helping reveal the structural weak points of the construction, allowing Ponyville to make it stronger and safer. That's definitely her intention. Yep, no other possible interpretations. Oh right, I got so hung up on Derpy I forgot Applejack was the focus of this episode. Anyway, the crowd gathers to chant for Applejack as the representative for Ponyville for the rodeo. Also, Lyra 54 and Bonbon 61. Also, welcome back Mayor. Always good to see you be relevant, even in season 2. Look at you lasting longer than I remember. Applejack was definitely not on stage beforehand. I assume she just jumped up from behind, but it's still weird for her to not just already be on the stage. Not sure why that choice was made. Derpy cheering on Applejack as well after looking out for Rainbow. She's just looking out for others while wanting to support and hype them up. Even if she did also kind of damage City Hall a little bit, but that's fine. It can be fixed. Oh hey, Pinky's in the audience. She definitely wasn't before, but whatever. She is now. Twilight and Fluttershy too. Definitely not here before. Rarity is over to the right more, but it's annoying to grab like 3 screenshots for a single panning shot. So just trust me that they're all here, despite not being here originally. They give Mayor some really good expressions in this episode, especially for this specific shot, but I'm not entirely sure what to call this one. I'm not sure what extremely happy smile plus sultry eyes translates to. I didn't stop this in the middle of like a blink like I sometimes do. This is just what she looks like. Also, her hoof looks weirdly tiny as well. Because here she's looking with admiration at Applejack's generosity and humility by giving her winnings away to the town, but I don't know what the heck she was doing before. The Apples and most of the main 6 are here to see Applejack off. I can only assume Fluttershy and Rarity are behind the others, but they're not shown here. Even Mayor is actually seeing her off, as she's representing Ponyville, which is a nice detail. Unfortunately, the Mayor only seems to care about the money that Applejack's going to bring home. Yep, suddenly a lot more ponies that definitely weren't here before. Debating with myself to count Bonbon or not. This is technically a new scene despite her being in the audience earlier, but since none of the other audience ponies were brought to say farewell, I'll count it, sure. Bonbon 62. So, for some reason, the train no longer needs ponies out front pulling. It's been a few months since the Appaloosa episode, so maybe they made some technological leaps for their train. But more likely, the train to Appaloosa is just a long ride, so they don't use normal coal power. They just go with, like, raw manpower. Since we never see the Canterlot train, which is this train, use ponies for pulling in the episode that we've seen it in, all of them, I have to assume that only the Appaloosa one has that thing happen. Regardless, I could have pointed this out earlier, but yeah, the Canterlot train, no pulling ponies, Appaloosa pulling ponies. Not sure why, but if I had to guess, it has something to do with either the locale, distance, time, or resources. The Mayor is already gone. Either they effed up, or she really only cared about the money. Or she's just busy, because, you know, Mayor. Again, it's a new scene, and there are no other ponies from the previous groups, so we'll say this is Bonbon 63. And that Bonbon really likes Applejack. Also, her candy cutie mark is layered above her mane in this shot. Also, we see some of the expanded apples here. The red-maned one is Peachy Sweet, and the green-maned one is Red Gala. Not sure why those names aren't swapped. Feels like they'd fit better. Oh, right. Also, they're hosting a party for Applejack's return. We just kind of skipped over the competition. Despite previously respecting Fluttershy's sensibilities, Pinkie just startles the heck out of Fluttershy twice. Thankfully, she doesn't start crying, so, you know, it's not the worst. Bit of a dick move from Pinkie if we're being real. Plenty more apples here, but I'm way too lazy to name all of them. But Apple Fritter is here in the center, and the only reason I remember her is because I pointed her out in the series premiere. Random male pony shows up and ruins their surprise a bit, so Twilight grabs the mail and slams the barn shut. Rude as heck. But Pinkie comes back to give him cake for his birthday, because it was apparently his birthday too. Good job, Pinkie. And really messed up, Twilight. That's not cool. The letter Twilight grabbed is from Applejack, who says she's not coming home yet, and she'll send money soon, which of course surprises and concerns everyone. For some reason, they all assume Applejack meant she's not coming back at all permanently, and they all start saying how, oh, she loved Ponyville and the farm, how could this be? But like, why would you assume she meant forever? She doesn't specifically say she'll be back soon, she just says, not coming back will send money, which I guess is why, but she clearly wrote it in haste with minimal details, so she probably wasn't thinking very clearly. The main 6 all say basically the exact same thing I did after the apples finished panicking, so they volunteer to go find her. The Ponyville to Canterlot train is 21 cars long. Also, wait, the train said it was going to Canterlot, but why do I not remember there being Canterlot? Did they transfer to a different settlement after Canterlot? That has to be right? I'm not crazy. I'm right. It's the kids who are wrong, not me. Alright, so you can't really see this unless you're watching the episode very carefully, and since I can only record my video clips in extremely low FPS, I can't properly show you, but the train conductor is completely still while the train bobs up and down while it's moving, despite the fact that the pony in the car behind bobs up and down completely normally. Just trust me that the conductor is spatially locked in place and doesn't bounce. Okay, so Canterlot does just have a massive arena for some reason. Where is this located? No idea, but it has to be on the ground, right? Maybe this is part of the bottom of the mountain that we keep hearing about? Because I don't, like, they'd have to, like, dig into the mountain, but they'd have to, like, destroy the mountain to place this on, unless there's, like, a giant plateau on the backside of it. This has to be at the bottom, right? I don't know, man. The main 6 all split up to look for anyone who has seen Applejack, and they all just have photos of her. Twilight showing Golden Harvest and another Ponyvillian Applejack's photo like they don't know who she is. Why are they even here? They're just working the rodeo, but I'm pretty sure we saw them in Ponyville, but I guess that was before Applejack left, so maybe they left on the same train, I guess. I think we actually saw Golden Harvest getting on the train in one of the screenshots I used earlier. So yeah, I guess they just came here to work the rodeo. Okay. Okay, show. You can't just give them cowboy hats and call them different ponies. Apple Fritter was in the barn with the other apples. She didn't go with them to the train station at all. Anyway, Bonbon 64. Not sure why this table is here. If it was from the show for like the announcers or something, they would have removed it. Anyway, Rarity dusting herself off with a tiny brush is adorable and really good detailing. Where did you even come from? There were no other ponies in the stadium right now. They all left. It showed us an empty one. I shouldn't need to say this, but this makes no geographical sense. Even if this is the bottom of the Canterlot Cliffs, there is no desert area anywhere near Canterlot. The closest is some like hilly farmland to the side, but that's vaguely yellow, but this is straight up desert. The other place is like farmland covered in wheat, which is why it's yellow. This is just a wasteland. So yeah, they go to quote-unquote Dodge Junction, which isn't on the map I have. There is a Dodge City, but it's on the other side of a forest, some ruins, and Rambling Rock Ridge, all of which would block their perspective to see it from Canterlot. Unless they were on top of the mountain instead of the base, but if they were on top, the angle would have been shot down more, and it was also obviously way too close. Especially since they had to get on a train to get here, I can only assume Dodge Junction is this little split here before Appaloosa and Dodge City, since while I'm not super familiar with train terms, I assume a junction is like a split, like a place where you go one of two directions. ponies, or it's just a station, but I feel like they would just call it a station at that point. So Pinky having a full bladder wasn't a strange attempt at comedy, it was a deus ex machina to have her find Applejack, who was also in the loo. I guess that's one way to do it, not a great way, but sure. Also, Applejack didn't recognize Pinky's voice, but Pinky recognized Applejack instantly, not sure what that says, other than Applejack probably wasn't expecting any of the main 6 to be here. Also, this pony has Bonbon's cutie mark, and this one has Daisy's. They're also both recolors with the same mane and tail style. Recolors don't work if you use the exact same cutie mark, show. I don't think we met this pony in Appaloosa, so let's introduce her. This is Cherry Jubilee, the boss Cherry Ranch. Also, isn't that the same cherry cutie mark as that other cherry pony we saw earlier in the episode? I just went back and looked. I think it is. So why'd they give her like an entirely unique design? That's really good. I enjoy it. It's very fun. But not a unique cutie mark. Like they wanted her to be cherry focused, so it's like, well, let's just use the cherry. You already have it. But they use that on a background pony a lot. You could have just made it like 2 cherries attached to each other. I mean like 2 pairs of 2, whatever. Cherry tells everyone that Applejack won more ribbons than any pony and was quote-unquote looking for a change of scenery, hence why Cherry brought her to Dodge Junction, which obviously upsets everyone, because Applejack isn't explaining anything. Concerned from Fluttershy and Rarity, while the others are not believing Applejack's crap about wanting to work with cherries instead of apples for a bit, which is the only thing she says. Even Cherry did a better job at BSing, and she wasn't even trying to. Much the same expressions as Applejack expressly states this time that she is not going back to Ponyville and to tell the apples she's doing fine. It's been a while, but long. The main 6 all get jobs alongside Applejack, which is hilarious, as Cherry not only had the space for all of them, but also the openings. Not sure what she was going to have Applejack do without them, since this was apparently a large-scale enough job that 6 ponies were needed. So, you know, lucky Cherry. Cherry tells the girls to have fun on a factory line, sorting cherries. Is she the worst kind of boss, or the best? Or just woefully unaware? After almost a minute of silent cherry sorting, Twilight and Rainbow enact their plan to get Applejack to talk. And that plan is literally just to ask her about her time and seeing if she had fun or met people, which is honestly a really good way to get someone to open up that's not as rude as simply trying to be direct and get the answers you want. Perhaps the most tactful strategy used in the series so far. Of course, they also are definitely trying to trick her into opening up, but it's not in like a negative or hostile manner. They're worried and they chose a good way to go about it. Rarity leaves the line as well to ask how AJ met Cherry, which, while answering, causes Applejack's gait to increase, showing her literally trying to run away from her problem, which is great visual storytelling, while also increasing the burden on Fluttershy and Pinky, who were left to sort alone. Also, douchey move from the other main 6 to leave these 2 alone. Also douchey move on Applejack for accelerating, but she's got the emotional weight of the story behind her, so she gets a pass. Kudos to both of these 2 for keeping the job going, but extra kudos to Pinky, because she actually seems super focused and into it, while Fluttershy is just asking Applejack to slow down. But you know, in her normal voice, so no one listens. They treat Pinky not great in a lot of episodes, but Fluttershy also gets ignored in a lot of episodes, which I don't feel like it gets talked about enough. While the grilling continues, Applejack enters a full gallop, which causes the duo on the conveyor to panic. Pinky thinks it's a good idea to take a pile of cherries and put them on Fluttershy's head. What was she really hoping to accomplish? It's funny, but she's not laughing. She just seems confused and worried. She's just sort of panicking, I guess. Oh, okay, it just appears like she's trying to keep them off the floor. Okay, I guess that makes sense, yeah. Not the putting them on her head, but, you know, she could have put them into Fluttershy's baskets, but she didn't do that. Why are there even this many cherries? They're overflowing the buckets, too! Pinky, no, please don't eat the product. That's illegal. You're criming right now. Applejack finally stops and gets splattered by cherries coming off the conveyor belt, despite the fact that the spinning wheel was off to the side, not directly in front of the cherries on the conveyor belt. I guess a couple should have hit her, but not this much. 2 nice details back to back is the first one, they don't forget to put the cherries on top of Fluttershy and Pinky's heads, even though they could have easily done that. And second, they actually animate the strands of the cherry goo instead of just opening the eyes normally. It really gives the sticky mess vibe. Good job. Thankfully, the main 6 sans Applejack actually clean up the mess they made, so that's nice. Seems like this show that the main 6 probably do the right thing after messing up more than it's actually shown. They could have just had them follow Applejack who left, but no, they stuck behind. That's good. We also don't see Jubilee react to this at all. She just isn't around. Rainbow then mentions how they need to call in the quote-unquote big guns, which, while being an allusion to firearms, also has Applejack and Rarity agreeing on something which feels rare. Also, another small detail is Rarity's eyelashes being curled while Rainbow's are straight, which is very fun. Shame it's not always like that. So just to clarify, I do know that cherries come from trees thanks to American history talking about George Washington and the cherry tree, but it still feels weird. I don't know why, but I imagine the trees as either being smaller or them being on bushes like berries. Just feels more sensical, but nature doesn't really care about what I think. Also, do they grow in pairs like we always see when people draw cherries, like in Pac-Man and on the cutie marks? Or do they grow in bushels and get removed into pairs? Why do I randomly care so much about cherry farming and production? The world may never know. I like the detail of Pinky shaking this tree while Applejack bucks it normally. While they're both farming ponies, Pinky mainly used her mouth to hold a pickaxe or maybe some front hoof-based smashing. It shows a difference in styles, which is neat. It might have also been done this way simply to show Applejack is more experienced and Pinky not understanding, as it looks like Applejack is going to tell her to buck instead. She doesn't, but it's what it seems like. Oh, right. Also, their quote-unquote big guns is just sicking Pinky on Applejack and having her talk nonstop. So they're using their overexcitable friend as a weapon. Kind of rude, I'm gonna be honest, especially given how uncomfortable Applejack is. There are more multicolored cherries in this scene than there are multicolored apples in all of Season 1. It's nice not going crazy over cherries on trees. Of course, the cherries aren't kept consistent in every scene, unfortunately. Also, of course, the main six are around, but they plugged their ears so as to not have to listen to Pinky. Again, pretty rude. But Applejack starts to beg for it to stop, which Pinky, of course, ignores, while the others force her to come clean if she wants them to silence the Pinky. Wish we could hear what Pinky thinks about being used like this. She does keep smiling and stops talking when Applejack gives in, so maybe she doesn't care, but it seems really mean to be using her like this. Also, seeing all of the other main six come out of the trees just feels like a horror movie. Also, man, now that I'm recording, I'm watching the trees more frequently than I was while watching the episode, but they really did mess up the cherries in a lot of shots with only red. Applejack then Pinky promises to discuss the truth tomorrow at breakfast. Oh no, she broke the Pinky promise, which is one of Pinky's red flags and triggers. She's genuinely angry right now. Alright, so up to this point, Applejack was completely within her right to not talk about anything, as she explicitly said that she didn't want to discuss it. As such, she didn't lie about anything, meaning her element of honesty was intact. However, here, she directly lied without hesitation or difficulty, while also breaking a promise. This is categorically against her element of honesty. She didn't even struggle to lie like she has in the past. It was as natural as breathing. Even if Rainbow was suspicious, Applejack didn't do anything suspicious outside of asking to postpone the reveal. But the way she asked wasn't even suspicious either. It was said like she was speaking completely normally. I think this is where Applejack needs to get a bad friend point. She not only broke her element, but she also actively avoided and lied to her friends. The conflict of this episode is related to information. If she had simply kept refusing to tell them by directly telling them no, she'd have been fine. But giving in and then double crossing it is just horrible. I don't think the main six are in the wrong, at least not massively here. Using Pinky as a weapon was rude to Pinky and somewhat manipulative towards Applejack, but as I mentioned earlier, they tried to handle it with respect and tact by just talking to her normally about things, completely unrelated to what they wanted, to try and get her to open up naturally. They care too much about her to just let her leave home and her family behind for no valid reason, so the escalation feels justified in that aspect as well. I'll move on for now, but this is why I'm giving AJ the point. Pinky's extreme anger at the Pinky promise being broken probably hides some trauma. Not sure what about. I don't recall any lies in her backstory or in the show so far. But she hates liars, which is definitely the same for me. Probably has something to do with her mental condition that she definitely has and will not be discussed until much later in time. Applejack just hijacks a carriage and the four stallions just go along with it. Twilight points out an abandoned cart. This is theft, but I guess we don't really care about crime out here in the boonies. Cast your votes. Who shall they put in the carriage to catch up to the fastest land pony of the main six? Probably Rainbow, right? Come to think of it. Rainbow could probably just catch up with the other carriage and sweep Applejack off of it, or even destroy a wheel if they were not caring about property damage. The other to pull the carriage would probably be Pinky if I had to guess. Let's find out. Why Fluttershy? I would have accepted Twilight, but Fluttershy? Man, they just forced Fluttershy to do so much crap she is not built for. At least she looks determined and like ready to go, but this feels really out of place for her. They are not only keeping up, but catching up to four stallions. I get that the stallions have a big carriage, but there are two more ponies pulling as well, so this is just kind of insane. Okay, so the reason why they had Fluttershy pulling the carriage was so she could stop to not hit a bunny in the road. But Fluttershy is able to stop the carriage going full speed by herself? There is no continuity or consistency here, only jokes. This definitely feels more like a slapstick focused episode rather than like a plot or story or emotional episode. Applejack then says she'll pay double to outrun them, so I guess these guys are a taxi service, and Applejack is actually paying? They also don't have cutie marks, just notice that. Twilight offers triple for them to slow down, which they do, but Applejack then goes for quadruple, and at this point it's just an auction, and that's strictly good for them. Also, they just aren't really doing expressions for Fluttershy and Rarity, so they just look like they're having a fun time, which maybe they are, maybe they're having a good old time. Okay, what I think we're learning here is that when Fluttershy locks the hell in, she's a monster, which I mean, we did see her throwing her bear friend around, so maybe that's it. Still inconsistent with her strength and speed showings previously, and she will also continue to demonstrate her slowness in the future with an entire episode based around it. Also, I know there is at least one consistent feat that worked with this with the Discord premiere where she flew with the balloon, but two feats being consistent versus like the rest of the show is not really a majorative effect. Applejack says she didn't break her Pinky promise because she said she'd tell them at breakfast, but she didn't come to breakfast. However, breakfast quote-unquote time is also a thing. On top of that, she's playing semantics. You can't consider this honest as you didn't sidestep the truth with an actual clever use of words or truth. Like, you didn't use a different truth, you just lied. You just sort of like announced your intentions directly and then backtracked. If you wanted to sidestep it, you'd say that I'll tell you when we next meet for breakfast, because if you never meet them, then you successfully sidestep. This was just straight up a lie. Maybe I'm also delving too much into the semantics, but I don't know, man. Applejack also somehow got the rope tied around her hooves, but they look like they were pre-looped around the carriage in some of the previous shots, so that's probably what it is. Pinky then jumps away from Applejack after Applejack apologizes, yelling for Rarity to catch her. Damn it, Pinky. They do the classic barely avoid the train scene for westerns and probably plenty of other shows, followed by the equally used chasing party jumps the train scene. The stallions just call Applejack trouble and don't even accept payment. They just leave, which is not great business. But she also almost got them killed, so I get it. Not sure why Applejack stood there taunting when there are only 21 cars on the train and they could have just waited and would have caught her, but the true reason for the Pegasi pulling the cart is revealed as they fly over it, despite their wings being put under the harness the entire time and restrained. They really went for style over substance this episode. Also in a minute here, when Rainbow leaves the carriage, Rainbow finally decides to use her vastly superior speed to catch Applejack. As an excuse for not doing it sooner, I don't know, man. In town, maybe she didn't want to get any pony hurt, but once they left on the carriages, she could have done it at any time. Also, oh no, Applejack's non-blue ribbons have fallen out. I wonder why she was so worried about telling everyone what happened. So Applejack's shame is revealed. She never got first prize on any of the events. She came in 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, but not 1st. So the reason she wasn't coming home was both from shame and not winning any money to help Ponyville. Hence why she was working for charity. Fluttershy gives us her great sappy sentence of, "We can always find a way to replace that roof, but we can't replace you." Sentiment, which is, really adorable. I'm also paraphrasing that a bit. The letter to Celestia is thus, quote, "It's easy to come home proud when you come home in first than it is when you finish further back. But there's no reason to hide when you didn't do as good as you hoped. You can't run away from your problems, but you can run to your friends and family." End quote. Top tier lesson. Maybe not the best way to tell it, but it's serviceable enough. Lastly, Bonbon65. A lot of Bonbon this episode. Maybe she really likes the Apple family. I don't know. They just abandoned Pinky and Rarity? They went home without them? How? Why? What the hell, all of you? Okay, so if this was relevant to the plot, all they're about to be getting bad friend points. I think this was supposed to be a reference to something, since I remember in one of the Fairly OddParents movies, they had this same gag with the pixies where they're using the machine to go across the things. So it's probably some famous scene that I'm not aware of from a movie. But still, how dare they be so rude? And that was Season 2, Episode 14, The Last Roundup. We get our first Derpy speaking role where she's actually relevant. I actually don't know if she talks in the rest of the series. I think she appears multiple times, but they just got rid of her voice to avoid controversy, I guess. There was a lot of really neat details, like way more than I expected, but there was also a lot of weird errors over and over again, as well as some minor mischaracterizations. So, as much as I don't want to, I want to give it like a 7 because hell yeah, Derpy, but with all of the other problems, plus there's only a couple other minor benefits, so I think I'm just stuck with another 6, and I'm starting to feel bad because these are all just solid episodes. They're not fantastic. They're not like going above and beyond. They're all just good with minimal flaws. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Sorry. See ya.